We've owned this land for a year, but we weren't living here for, I guess, about 6 months because of the construction. There was just no place for us. Now we're actually living in a tent. We've been in a tent for about 2 weeks now, and we'll probably be there for another 2 weeks. But during most of, I guess, 5 of those 6 months, we weren't really coming back and maintaining the yard and doing gardening and stuff like that. And so then, like, kind of a month before we came back, we started cleaning it up. But we still managed to grow some stuff, so I wanted to show a little bit of what that's like. So right here behind me, I've got some plantains, and these are ready to be harvested. We just haven't put in the work yet. Plantains and bananas are strange because it looks like a tree. It's not actually a tree. Majority of the plant. Majority of the important parts of the plant. How about that? Majority of the energy of the, like, kind of where the fuel comes from to grow these plants is actually underground in the rhizome. And so it shoots out these babies, these pups, or suckers. There's a couple of different names for it. So in Spanish, you might call it their hijos, their children. So this actually has quite a lot of children. The conventional wisdom is to only have like 2 children at a time that are at different stages of growth, so that like this one would be this is one that after you harvest the bananas and plantains, you cut down the entire thing. And so here's one. That one looks kind of gross because that one, when we cut into it, we actually realized it was infected. So that was unfortunate. And so hopefully the rhizome doesn't get infected. But you can see how I cut that down about a week ago. And one of its biggest child is already looking pretty massive. And so yeah, we should probably only have like 3 trees in one cluster at one time. But we haven't been doing that. We have a lot of vines and stuff at the base, and so and I use cardboard as just free mulch. And so what we should be doing is actually like pulling the soil away and finding the ones that have, like this one right here, where it's just a really skinny leaf, because that means that it's more likely to have good roots of its own and not just be based off of the rhizome of the parent of the, it'll have roots in addition to rhizome. And so if we were to dig it out, we could actually separate it, cut it off of the rhizome, keep some of its roots, and move it, and it would just start a whole other like cluster of plantains. So like this one over here is really ridiculous. Let me see. That's ridiculous. I mean, it seems to be okay. Probably shouldn't have allowed that to happen, but like I said, we weren't even here. But it's also like hard to get into the dirt when there's a lot of vines, because you're trying to like pull stuff up and the vines are just holding on and you keep ripping off the vines. So yeah, we've got these 3 successful plantain clusters. These were the first plantains we bought, and so we definitely overpaid for these. We paid like $10 for a plantain tree, whereas now we've discovered that you can actually get them for about $4. And so these 2 that are not doing well, that one's not doing so great, but these 2 we actually did get for $4. And it seemed like they weren't doing great, but now this one seems to be doing better. So I think look at those. That's cool. So yeah, I think it kind of, when you first put them in the ground, it seems like they're not growing much, and that's just because the rhizome is like basically it's establishing the roots and stuff that you can't see. And then if you notice, like the leaves, look at the difference in the leaves of that one versus the leaves of this one. The wind really tears up the leaves. It doesn't seem to really hurt. The plant does just fine. What does seem to hurt though is if you look over at my banana trees over here. This one's doing amazing. I didn't even know. Let me take a good look at the bananas. You see how tall this banana thing is? I'm gonna make sure my husband is available to help me when I cut this down. It's ready. So I'm just worried that is gonna be extremely heavy. So most of these, like, I actually cut down the trees myself. But these banana trees are dwarf Cavendish. There's also a like a super dwarf, I think, that only gets like 4 feet tall, whereas these get like 6 feet tall. But this banana tree over here, I think I made a mistake in where I put it because it's under this flamboyant, and the flamboyant drops a lot of flowers and like seed pods, and it's just a lot of like fresh organic material. And so it seems, I mean, it does have pups, but this should definitely have flowered by now, and it hasn't. So so yeah, the bananas and plantains are interesting because it's like I guess if you plant one like waist high, like a year later, you have a whole bunch of fruit. I actually didn't plant this one. We just found it on the property. We were when we came back after those 6 months of not being on the property, we were clearing vines, and we were like, oh wow, that's a papaya tree. And it was actually looking really sorry. It only had, like, because the vines were taking it over, it was, so a month ago, it was like down to my waist and had maybe 3 healthy leaves. And so we freed it from the vines, and now it's doing really well. It's taller than me now. It's flowering, so papaya trees just grow like weeds here. They're really fun. I've got a few that I put in pots I can show you, but so we do just kind of find them randomly on the property, but they're pretty easy to plant too. The trick is you got to get all the gel off of the seeds. So what I do is I just soak the seeds in water for a couple days, and it gets really nasty, so I just like rubber band a paper towel on top of a cup and just soak the seeds for a couple days, and then the gel kind of falls off. So I've got a bunch of like baby papaya trees that I started in that way. So there's one that I actually separated on its own, but like here's a bunch of them. So it's pretty easy to get a papaya tree forest going. Let's see. Here's another plant I started from seeds. It hasn't fruited yet. We find passion fruit because it's a vine and we have a bunch of trees. And so anytime we have to like fix our water or something, we find we'll just find passion fruit on the ground. And so I took one of those and I did the same kind of method that I do for the papaya, where one method you can do for passion fruit is just to let the whole fruit dry out, and then it just turns black, and then you just like crush it, and then you have a bunch of seeds that way. And then another way you can do is the way that I do with the papaya. And so this was one that actually it's probably about a year old, but it wasn't doing very well until I added these trellis stakes. And when I first added the trellis things, I felt kind of silly because the plant was only like this tall. And then it's so cool. Like, plants are pretty cool because, you know, I didn't do this. It just wraps around. Or this one right here, like it will wrap onto itself. It will wrap on to other plants. It'll wrap onto trellises. It's pretty cool. Let's see, I've also got some pineapple. This one is actually not very old at all. It's only about 3 months old. So our pineapples, I've started just from buying pineapples at the grocery store. I try to buy them locally sourced. And then, yeah, I just kind of clean up the bottom leaves because those will get rotten anyways. So yeah, I pull off a bunch of the bottom leaves and then stick it in dirt. And it usually starts growing. You can soak it in water too, but yeah, you just don't want it to be moldy. Here I've got some canepas that I started from seed about a year ago. So it's actually kind of the end of canepa season right now. Canepa season's kind of overlaps with mango season, but during canepa season you see people just selling like little baggies of them for $1 on the side of the road, and like people who have canepa trees just give them away a bunch of times because it's just so much fruit. And so I don't know how long this will take to actually fruit, probably a couple more years. But I basically had canepas that like the whole fruit, and I just left them alone, let them get all dried out and kind of moldy looking, and put them in the dirt, and they grew. And so I actually have I have 3 thriving canepa trees. I started with 6, and then I just decided to keep the 3 that were doing the best. This is an avocado tree. My neighbor actually started this one and gave it to me. So he had a pit from one of his own trees. So I'm excited about that because in the past I've found that avocado trees are really susceptible to wind. But this is growing on his property, and he's my neighbor, so he has a lot of wind too. And so it seems that whatever this variety is, I have no idea, that it's doing well. And so it actually seemed like it wasn't growing very much recently, and so I cut it. You can kind of see right there, I cut it, and then it started branching. So that's exactly what you hope will happen when you top off your avocado tree. So yeah, now it's looking beautiful again. And I also have, just from other things I started from seed, from the grocery store. These are from mandarin oranges. And so this is probably about a year old. I think I started these before we moved out, before we started all this construction stuff. So they're looking what I expect from citrus trees. They've got big thorns and healthy green leaves. They're looking really good. So I have, again, I probably started with about 6 of those, and then I capped the strongest ones. So I have 3 right now that look amazing. And then I started an apple tree from seed too, but I actually moved them around with us when we were staying at Airbnbs, and they didn't like that very much. So this one actually had like another branch, and it died. So I think I'm gonna prune. I was trying to give it more time, but I think I'm gonna prune that off. But I've still got this one. So apple trees do not grow true to seed. So when you plant an apple tree from a seed, from a fruit that you're eating, you don't know what you're gonna get. So that's why it's a numbers game. I had tried to, and you also have to like, what's it called? You have to put it like in the fridge so that, you know, you have to like give it a winter when it's a seed. Otherwise it won't germinate. So I did all that, and I have one other apple tree over there that is making me sad because I think I'm gonna give it a little bit more time, see if it recovers, but it seems like it's dying. So yeah, I've got 2 pineapple plants that are only about 3 months old, one that's about a year old. And then before we moved here, there was already mango trees on the property, and so when we first viewed the property, there was only 1 fruiting mango tree. But it turns out that after major hurricanes, it's possible for fruit trees to take 2 to 3 years to recover, to start fruiting. And so last year we only had 1 mango tree, but this year we have 4. So we got a fruit picker that's like an extendable pole with a basket. It's kind of like a claw. And then we pull down fruit. But I would like to kind of go into the woods where the mango trees are and find a little baby one and pull it out, because our mango trees are right over a stream. And so a lot of times the mangoes are just falling into the stream, and a lot of the branches are up way too tall for even our fruit picker. So it would be nice to kind of have a mango tree that we can intentionally keep small so that we can harvest from it. Now here's a papaya tree that has quite a lot of fruit on it. I don't know if I can get a good angle. So this tree is about a year old, and it's taller than me, and it has almost 20 papayas growing on it. So the first time we had a fruiting papaya tree, we did not get that much fruit out of it. Its first time, because this is its first time with fruit. Actually, here's one over here that we noticed our papaya trees actually got infected And so I cut the tops of them off. And this one decided to sprout 4 new branches. And so I'm just seeing what happens because they're actually flowering. They're all flowering female, which is fun because only the female papaya tree and hermaphrodites fruit need female flowers. Whereas like these 2 I cut because they were looking nasty, and it doesn't seem like they're coming back. So I'm probably gonna just like dig those out. But I've seen papaya tree here in Puerto Rico that are like, no joke, 20 feet tall. And at the very top, they maybe have 3 leaves and like 2 pieces of fruit. And I definitely do not want to get myself into that situation. So I would rather let it grow for a year or 2, cut it down, dig it out, throw it in the compost. And so yeah, that's kind of my plan. But actually this tree, so where is it? This one, kind of hard to see it. This one's actually, so yeah, that one's actually less than a year old. That one's probably only about 9 months old. That one is actually a little bit more than a year old because I bought it, I started it, it was probably about 3 inches tall when we closed on the house. So yeah, it's probably about 15 months old. It was actually male last time these 2 flowered. So let's see, it was actually while we were not living here, so about 5 months ago. All the flowers were male. And I was just letting it be because, you know, pollination, you need male and female. I'm going down a steep hill, please don't fall. So yeah, you need male and female. So I was like, okay, well, it can just be here as a pollinator. It was all male flowers. Now, it's female. So I guess it's a hermaphroditic tree, and it actually shot out this happens sometimes. Actually, my neighbor's papaya tree, I was at their property the other day, and there's shot out a little thing too. I need to pull these vines off of it eventually. Usually the child that shoots off is going to be the same gender, but these are male flowers, and well, I'll have to show another example of female flowers because this tree is getting really tall. Yeah, so I'm gonna let it fruit this time. I'm really looking forward to it because judging by the number of flowers on it, we're probably gonna have at least 30 pieces of fruit off of this tree. I don't know how many of them I'm gonna be able to eat. Some of them might be donated to the birds and the bats, but I would like to get some fruit off of this tree, and then I'll probably chop it down. But like papayas just grow like weeds, so yeah, no harm. So yeah, I think that's it. We also there's a breadfruit tree back there that doesn't have any fruit on it, and I think it's because it's not getting any sun. So at some point I would like to kind of clean up around it and see if giving it sun will make it fruit. I've heard from residents around here that it did fruit before Maria, so maybe it just needs more time. But at this point, I mean, how long has it been? 3.5 years, something like that. But even with the mango trees that we have, like where they have space, where they have sun and air and not so many vines crawling on them, is where they tend to have the most fruit. So I'm gonna try. But yeah, that's it for now. So now that we're actually like living here on the property, spending more time here, hopefully we can get some raised garden beds in. There's a bunch of stuff that I would really like to try to grow, but just gaining some experience little by little. And I've got a lot of land, not exactly a farm, but more than what we need to grow some food.